See which.
Hi, everyone. I see people starting to trickle in. My name is Anne Marie. I am a Director of Community Education at the Les Turner ALS Foundation. So glad you're all joining. I am going to share my screen in just a second, and we'll get started.
I still don't have that option, Anne Marie, do you?
Oh, pardon?
For the sound. I don't have the option for sound still.
Oh, goodness. Okay, let me see. Thanks everyone for being so patient. We're just working out some kinks. Let me try again. I wonder if I tried this.
Yep.
And
That
it
gave it to me. Thank you.
did it? Okay. So,
Yep. Mm.
fun fact, we can't share. It's just one participant sharing at a time. It's like that
That was
clicking.
the caveat. Okay.
Perfect. All right, folks, welcome to our July ALS Learning Series on voice preservation with Lane Rials. Just some quick housekeeping. You're going to notice that you're muted and off camera. So sit back, relax. This is also being recorded, so if at any point you have to hop off or you know somebody you might want to share this with, it should be up on our website, I would say within the next couple days, probably by Monday at the latest. Um, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature to drop any questions in there. You may notice that the chat feature is like locked. You won't be able to use that. Okay, dokie. And before we get started, always just want to thank our generous donors to the ALS Learning Series, like the Gilbert and Jacqueline Fern Foundation and Mitsubishi Tanabe Pharma America. We know that with an ALS diagnosis, it can be really hard to navigate, and you may be looking for information on what to do next. Please visit us at lesturnерals.org. We have a plethora of educational resources. We have My ALS Decision Tools, so 5 different online interactive tools that can help you narrow down a decision, a complex medical decision regarding ALS. If you're looking for more just in-depth information about symptoms and care options, we have our ALS information guides. And then, of course, we have our monthly ALS learning series. We record all of our learning series, and those are housed on our website. And then we always want to encourage folks to join the National ALS Registry. It's a great way to make sure that your ALS diagnosis is counted. It helps us learn more about prevalence and kind of hotspots and action areas. So to learn more, visit cdc.gov/ALS. And now it is my pleasure to introduce you all to a great friend. Lane Rials is a speech language pathologist who has a passion for augmentative and alternative communication and helping others. She has been privileged to work closely with many people living with ALS and their caregivers and families as a speech language pathologist. She was also a regional AAC consultant and now is an AAC specialist with the team at Bridging Voice. Welcome, Lane. I will stop sharing my screen and kick it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Anne Marie.
Yeah.
I'm so thankful to be here. Thanks for having me. So today we're going to talk a little bit about, um, excuse me, hold on one second. Voice preservation. So kind of beyond recording. So creating a preserved voice and using that voice. Okay, now we're back in order. Um, So again, creating and using a preserved voice. My name is Lane Rials. I am privileged to be a member of the Bridging Voice team. A little bit about us. We are a small but mighty team. We work specifically with people with ALS for communication and access to their technology. We have worked with over 4,000 people with ALS in all 50 states and now 24 countries. Our area of specialization is we work on customizations for people with their communication, whether that be in a communication app or a speech generating device. We do custom innovations for people who are looking for something a little bit extra in terms of what comes along with the communication software programs that might be on a device. We provide mentorship for speech language pathologists who are interested in AAC and working with people with ALS. And then we have our own education series that we do. Typically, it's monthly-ish. That we also do webinars. We actually have one coming up next week, a little plug about adaptive gaming. So all of our services are also always free. So setting the stage, what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about voice preservation as a whole. Typically, that's like three different areas that we talk about. The first being message banking, and then voice banking and voice cloning. I think sometimes some of these terms get used interchangeably, so it can be a little confusing. So I hope today will help kind of clarify some of that and answer any questions you might have about voice preservation. So why should I preserve my voice? Um, when we talk about voice banking, the process can be overwhelming. It can also be emotional. I think our voices represent who we are as people and individuals. So sometimes that can be overwhelming, but it can be meaningful because that helps you maintain that sense of identity and self. And then also in those familiar relationships, you kind of maintain that familiarity. So that way, you are communicating still with your communication partners in your own voice. Someone in a video that we have later in the webinar talks about it's so nice because, people feel like they are actually talking to the individual versus a computer. So when should I preserve my voice? Start early before you have any changes. And in talking with people living with ALS, so many have said, I wish I had started earlier. And some have recommended starting the day you're diagnosed. It's a lot of information and a lot of information, almost, water from a fire hose type situation. But start as early as you can. That way it's proactive versus reactive. But if you've already had changes to your voice, there are other options. Just know that. Voice banking is your insurance policy, your umbrella. So what happens is you'll do all this front end work, you'll do recordings, and then you'll just leave it until you need it. We always encourage people to do so just because the technology is getting better every day. And they may, if you were to get a personal synthetic voice now, the company that you did the voice banking with may be changing their technology and it may be improving. So if you wait until you absolutely need it, then your model of your voice may be even improved from when you did your recordings. So let's talk about message banking first. John Costello, who's with Boston Children's Hospital and does a lot with message, voice banking, and legacy messages, refers to message banking as when you're taking your own voice and digitally recording it, and you're storing words, phrases, sentences, personally meaningful sounds and or stories using your natural voice, inflection, and intonation. It is an actual recording of your voice. So a lot of times people will ask, what should I record? When you are banking messages, so when you're doing message banking, record messages that are personally meaningful to you and your family. I always use the example of my grandmother always says to me, "You are my sunshine." So if she were message banking, I would ask her to record "You Are My Sunshine" so that I would have that in her voice, that recording in her voice. It's more impactful with your natural voice because it matters how you say it. I was just working with one of my clients just yesterday, and he was saying, I want to have separate banked messages, like to say no in a different way. So, in just a normal no, or a "no, you must be kidding" type way. So we were talking about banking each of those messages in a recording of his voice. That way he can use his natural voice and in the way he wants to portray that message. Um, Message banking can also include non-speech sounds like a laugh or a ew or a whistle or a cheer for sports, your favorite team. Um, I feel like our laughs are so personal to each of us. So I always encourage my clients, record your laugh because I feel like that is such a huge part, again, of who we are in our personal, um, a representation of us personally. So I always encourage my clients to do that. There are some handouts, and you'll be provided links to these handouts after the presentation that have some other ideas for messages to bank and store. So, how do you do message banking? You can do it on a desktop computer or laptop. Audacity is an audio editing software that is free on Windows or Mac, and you can record directly into the program and save those recordings. If you have a smartphone or a tablet, if you have an Android, you can do an audio record voice recorder app that's available. Apple has the AVRX voice recorder app. And then if you have any questions or need help with that, there is a video guide from Boston Children's and John Costello that I mentioned just a few minutes ago that will give you a YouTube video to give you some instructions and guidance on that as well. You could also get a handheld recorder. Typically, we're recommending a Zoom H1N recorder. I don't know if Les Turner has these available for loan or will provide these, but they're not super expensive on Amazon, but you may be able to find a way to borrow one as well. Um, then to store those recordings, you would use mymessagebanking.com. It is absolutely free and it is compatible, even though Tobii Dynavox, it will go through Tobii Dynavox. It's compatible get across different apps and softwares. You just go on and create an account and then upload then those recordings. You can organize and categorize them there on the website. And then when you need to integrate those either into an app or your communication software, it's pretty easy. So that was message banking. Now we'll talk a little bit about traditional voice banking. Again, I think sometimes these terms get used interchangeably, but so message banking is that recording of your speech with your intonation. It is an actual recording of you speaking or making a non-speech sound. Voice banking is the process of creating a synthetic computer approximation of your natural voice. So it will be more computerized or digitized sounding, but I always tell my clients it will still sound computerized or digitized, but it will sound more like you than any of the built-in voices, whether that be in a communication app or in the communication software in a speech generating device. It will sound more like you than any of those. I do have sometimes people will tell me, well, I want to sound like the Queen of England instead of like me now. So sometimes people do choose to use one of those built-in voices. But if you want something that sounds more like you would do voice banking. So you do recordings, and then those are used to create that synthetic approximation of your voice, and it can be integrated into for text to speech output, either in an app or a communication software in a speech generating device. And it's used to speak any novel words or like stored phrases and messages that you type. And again, it is going to be a computerized, more digitized sounding version of your voice. So, what are your options for voice banking? There are several companies out there that do this. Um, with voice banking, the accounts are free for you to use to create the voice. The cost comes on the back end when you would then be purchasing the personal synthetic voice that was created for you when you're ready to use it for integration in an app or a communication software. Um, so if there are any questions about that, please feel free to pop them in the Q&A section. I'll be happy to go back and clarify if there's any question about that. But so we'll talk about some of the companies who do voice banking, and the first one being Acapella. So Acapella, they have 50 required phrases that they have you record on their website or in the iOS app or an Android app. Um, in addition to those 50 required phrases, you can add in personally relevant words or phrases. What happens is when you're in the dashboard is the word I'm looking for. When you're in the Acapella dashboard and you're doing the recording with the online recorder, it adds them onto the end of those 50 required phrases. So if you added 10 additional phrases, 50 through 51 through 60 would then be your personal messages that you could record there just on the website. It is free for people with ALS through Team Gleason, and that free also indicates for the purchase of the voice. So if you were to either work with Gleason for support and or just you can also just request the funding from Team Gleason and they will pay for the purchase of that personal synthetic voice through Acapella. One thing that's nice about Acapella is it's a small number of sentences that you actually have to record. It integrates into most of the existing apps and software, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. And then it does have its own app that you can use as a text-to-speech app on the iPhone and Android, but those are more limited. The next company we'll talk about is VoiceKeeper. These recordings are done, their sentences on a website. You can do them through banked messages or a combination of those. The more sentences you record with VoiceKeeper, the better the quality of the personal synthetic voices created. I think you start with 50 recordings, then you can do 100, 200, I believe it's up to 300. Amory, if you know more offhand, please feel free to correct me. But again, the more sentences you record, the better quality of voice they say that you'll get. You can use any banked messages. So let's say you used a handheld recorder and did a bunch of message banking. You can take those messages and then use them in VoiceKeeper to create a personal synthetic voice. And again, it integrates into most existing apps and software. And there is an app that you can do the recordings on your iPhone if you have an iPhone, if you're an iPhone user. An Apple personal voice is for all of my iOS users out there. To create an Apple personal voice, you would just go into the iOS settings on your either phone or iPad, accessibility and personal voice, and that will walk you through on the screen of your device how to create your personal voice. It's 150 sentences, and you can create up to 3 voices. It is free. The only caveat being you do have to have an iPhone 12 or higher. There are specific iPads that can do the Apple personal voice. And then if you're using a Mac, it needs to have Apple Silicon. It does require your Face ID, Touch ID, or passcode just for security reasons. Apple requires that. Speak Unique is another one of the companies that you can do voice banking with. For a voice build, you record 150 to 300 sentences. It's only done on a computer, so no apps like some of the others have. Um, you could do a voice repair. So if you have already mild to moderate dysarthria, it attempts to mimic your voice before it changed. And then there's also voice design, where if you already have previous recordings and or you choose to use someone, maybe you have a family member whose voice sounds similar to yours, you could use, or you would just like them to be a voice donor for you. You can use their recordings as well and go through voice design and have a personal synthetic voice created in that way. Speak Unique does have a very robust app that is on iOS and Android. But for the voice build, I just do want to note that that recording can only be done on the computer, but it could be used in their Speak Unique app. So how do I get started? If you have a desktop computer or laptop, you can go directly to these websites. Like I said, it's free for you to create the account and do the recordings. What happens is then when you have done the recordings and the voice is created, you're not going to have to pay for anything until you absolutely need to have that voice created to use it in an app or on a speech generating device. So those are links again that you'll receive to each of these websites so that you can get started on a desktop computer or laptop. If you're using an iPhone or an iPad, you can do that Apple Personal Voice just through the iOS settings. VoiceKeeper and Acapella MOV both have apps that you can use to do the recordings. Different companies work different for different people. So always remember, you can try more than one. Again, the accounts to create and do the recordings are free. So please try them out and then determine which voice you feel like represents your voice the most and go with that one. And again, after recording, you'll have that voice created and then you'll wait to purchase that voice only when you're ready to use it. So next we'll talk a little bit about voice cloning. So what is voice cloning? It is the process of creating a high quality computerized version of your voice that's often indistinguishable from a person's natural voice. Um, it gives you more intonation and a more conversational style than traditional personal synthetic voices that you were doing with voice banking. Typically, it sounds less computerized and a little bit more natural, and it uses AI or artificial intelligence to continue to improve that voice. So, what are my options with 11 Labs? So 11 Labs, sorry, I missed a slide there. 11 Labs, Bridging Voice has partnered with 11 Labs to offer free pro subscriptions to the 11 Labs website for you to create a voice clone. There are two versions of voice cloning that you can do with 11 Labs. Once you've created your account, you can go to our website, so bridgingvoice.org/11labs, to request a free code for you to then get that account. And then once you have the account set up, you can create an instant voice clone. That requires about 1 minute of audio. You can do that process either um, online on their online recorder, or if you have voicemails, recordings, um, any presentations maybe that you've done, things of that nature, you can use those to create an instant voice clone. Again, the beauty of an instant voice clone is you just need about a minute of audio. Um, and it processes near instantly. So once you have that audio, if you're recording it there on the website or if you're uploading a WAV or MP3 file, then you will have an instant quality voice replica. But it may or may not sound as much like you, depending on the audio that you put in. So we try to encourage people, make sure you have good quality audio, even though it only has to be a minute, make sure it's good quality. Um, so I have a couple of instant voice clones. samples and then a professional voice clone sample that I'm going to play for you in just a second. So what's the difference between an instant voice clone and a professional voice clone? Well, a professional voice clone requires 10 minutes minimum, and it will be better the more audio that you have. You can use up to 3 hours of audio recordings. It does require a longer processing time because 11 Labs is going back. Once you've submitted all that audio, they are going back behind the scenes and doing what they call fine tuning. Um, it is a hyper realistic, customized model that's trained specifically from your voice. So all the recordings that you submit, it's customizing it and with AI that is specifically trained for your voice. It's often undistinguishable from a natural voice. So let me play a few samples for you. This first one is going to be an instant voice clone of Lisa Bardock, who's with the ALS of Michigan.
The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog.
So that was her instant voice clone. And this next one is going to be my colleague, Abigail Marks, her instant voice clone.
The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog.
And then this will be Abigail's professional voice clone sample.
The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog.
So you can hear the difference between that instant voice clone and professional voice clone for Abby. It's just because she's put in more recordings, it sounds a little bit better and even more like her natural voice than the instant voice clone. So how do I get started? You can request a free coupon code, like I said, from bridgingvoice.org/11labs. So it allows anybody with ALS to create a free pro account. If you are doing a professional voice clone, you may need a letter confirming your diagnosis of ALS from a speech pathologist if you're working with one, or a physician. When you create your account, then you can, if you have enough time of recordings or want to put in enough time for the recordings, you can create that professional voice clone. 11 Labs provides a really nice step-by-step guide for that professional voice clone through this link on their website. And if you say to me, Lane, my voice has changed so much since I had these recordings done, then you may have to go back, not may, you will have to go back through and complete a manual verification, just verifying that that is your recording, that is your voice, and that you have the rights to those recordings and that you are creating the actual voice clone versus someone maybe potentially creating a voice clone of you for ill will. But there is a Bridging Voice step-by-step guide for that manual verification as well. If you say to me, Lane, I have recordings, but I don't really know if they're the best quality, maybe they could use some tweaking, but I'm not an audio editor, that's fine. 11 Labs Impact Program has created what they're calling the 11 Labs Impact Voice Lab. So they have a team of volunteers to assist you with your audio editing. So this is a link to that website where then you can connect with them to give them your audio for them to help with some of that audio editing. So what's the difference between voice banking and voice cloning? So traditional voice banking, I love this table because it just lays everything out so nicely and so clearly. With traditional voice banking, what happens is you get a SAPI voice or a SAPI 5 file of your voice, which is then installed into either your app or your communication software. So it then lives on whatever device you're using for communication, and it doesn't require a Wi-Fi or cellular connection. A professional voice clone, or even the instant voice clone, any voice clones will require, it is web-based, and then when it's integrated, it still requires a Wi-Fi or cellular data connection. For traditional voice banking, you have unlimited characters. With the voice clones, it is subscription-based and monthly. It is free with that code from us and 11 Labs. And with that account, you have 500,000 characters per month. But it does have a rollover. So let's say you only used 100,000 in July. August, you would then have 600,000. I'm sorry, you would have 1,900,000. Math is hard for speech language pathologists. So you would have whatever remaining credits from the previous month in addition to 500,000 characters for the new month. There is also a usage-based billing option. You do have to enter credit card information when you are creating the 11 Labs Pro subscription account. You can request that that credit card be removed from the account later by 11 Labs. And you can also, there's a toggle option where um, any overages of your character limit will not be billed to you. Then the 11 Labs voice would then just stop working essentially. It wouldn't have any output. Um, for the recordings for traditional traditional voice banking, um, the services provide a script. So what is happening is they've created the script so it gets all of the phonemes of whatever language you're recording in. Usually it's anywhere from 50 to 200 sentences that are needed. With 11 Labs voice clones, there's no script. You can use previous recordings or make a new one. We always encourage people to be making sure that it's conversational. Sometimes reading books, if you're using more intonation, if you're doing voices of characters and doing some variation of that with your voice, that's nice. But you do want it to be more conversational in style. So that way the clone picks up on that intonation and your personal style and it's not so monotone. Um, the quality and the style of traditional voice banking, it is more monotone. It's going to be more flat, it's going to be synthesized and more computerized voice, while the voice clones will provide that intonation, more conversational style. It typically sounds less computerized and more natural. And a lot of times it's really indistinguishable from someone's natural speaking voice. You should really do both. We always encourage people to do that traditional voice banking and a voice clone. So why? Why should I do that? Um, because it's an insurance policy. Again, this whole process of voice preservation is that insurance policy. You may never need it. But if you do, you have it there and as a backup. And if you do traditional voice banking and voice clone, you always have that backup. So when there's no Wi-Fi or cellular data available, you always have that uh, personal synthetic voice or banked voice that sounds more like you. Um, there's no character limit. Again, it's really rare to reach that 500,000 per month, and with the rollover, even less likely. But you can also, when you're using your voice over the phone, the 11 Labs voice does not work in phone calls yet. Um, and then, so it will default to then your personal synthetic voice if that's the one that's set as your system voice. So here are some voice comparisons for you. This first one is Lisa Bardock from ALS of Michigan, and she is using her voices in Speech Assistant, which is a text-to-speech app.
Okay, go ahead. This video will illustrate the difference between using a banked voice versus a banked message.
And I should have said, and she does say, so this is a banked message versus a personal synthetic voice. Oops.
Okay, go ahead. This video will illustrate the difference between using a banked voice versus a banked message. First is a message that I created with text-to-speech, and I'm using my voice banked with one of the options we discussed earlier to say it. Then I will play the same message that I banked with message banking using a digital recorder. Notice that both messages are stored as complete messages in the app. So here's my banked voice. I'm the speech language pathologist at ALS of Michigan. And here is my banked message. I'm the speech language pathologist at ALS of Michigan. Here's another example. This one is a good illustration of the vocal intonation nuances you can get with message banking that typically don't come across with a banked voice. First, here's my banked voice. What were you thinking? Now, here's my banked message. What were you thinking?
So again, banking a message where it's a recording of your speech, you can give it that personal flair, the intonation to give it the exact message that you're wanting to get across. This is going to be my colleague Abigail Marks again. This is going to be her traditional banked voice and then a sample of her 11 Labs voice as well, her voice clone.
Hello, this video will demonstrate a comparison of my traditional voice banked voice and my 11 Labs voice clone. First, my traditional voice banked voice.
Hi, this is Abby. Thank you for joining us for the talk today. We are so excited that you're here.
And now, my 11 Labs clone.
Hi, this is Abby. Thank you for joining us for the talk today. We are so excited that you're here.
So you can hear the difference in that traditional banked voice and then her 11 Labs voice clone. This is an individual who she is actually a chaplain at a hospital system who she created her 11 Labs voice and she was kind enough to share it. So here's a little video about her experience and her using her 11 Labs voice clone.
For about 2 years now, there's actually been a team put together specifically for coworkers with just different disabilities or challenges, and I was called to be kind of lead that from an MTS perspective. So what we've created for Pamela is a text-to-talk feature, so she has the ability to type a message out.
The voice that you hear is my actual voice before ALS.
I think that's important, to patients and coworkers. It makes you feel more connected with that person. It isn't like you're talking to a machine. It feels like you really are talking to Pam and have that relationship.
Several years ago, I completed a series of interviews and the audio files were saved. A nonprofit group called Bridging Voices sent the audio files to a company in Germany called Evelyn Labs. This group created an AI version of my voice. It has my inflections and even a southern touch. I have my voice back and I can talk with others again. I use this to round and visit with patients, complete devotions, and offer prayers. It is an amazing use of technology.
It's just one of those things that really warms your heart, makes you feel good that you can help somebody else. And in turn, she's helping our patients.
So again, just a testimonial to speak to the quality of the voice clones and how it can help you maintain, again, that personal connection and when you feel like you're actually speaking to a person. Other questions and considerations. Revisiting, why should I preserve my voice? The process can be overwhelming and emotional, but it can be meaningful again for maintaining your sense of self and retaining that importance and familiarity in your relationships. When should you get started? The earlier, the better. Again, we've had people telling us, I wish I had started this process when I was diagnosed. Again, I know it's a lot of overwhelming information when you receive a diagnosis of ALS, but the earlier, the better. You may or may not need it. Again, it's an insurance policy. You can work on it all at once or over time. The timing of the message banking versus voice banking and cloning, start out with a list of those custom messages before you record. That way you're not trying to come up with them on the fly. You kind of have your own script for those messages that are personally relevant to you. You can use those message bank recordings to improve your synthetic voice. So, like we talked about acapella, you can add on to them. That will then improve that quality of the synthetic voice that's created. And you can continue to record after. If you think of other things, you can use either an app to do additional recordings or the handheld recorder that I mentioned earlier to add to those recordings at a later date. Is it too late for me? I've had changes to my voice. Nope, there are other options to voice banking and cloning if you've already experienced some changes. Again, you can use those previous recordings, videos, voicemails. For the cloning, you need for an instant voice clone, 1 minute of audio. For a professional voice clone, you need 10 to 30 minutes ideally, but up to 3 hours you can use. And for the voice banking, for acapella and VoiceKeeper, you can take previous recordings and they will create a voice from those for a fee. So there is some cost associated with if you wanted to use previous recordings with acapella and VoiceKeeper. You could do voice repair with Speak Unique, and then you could also consider doing voice banking or cloning by proxy. So if you have somebody in your family whose voice is similar to yours and you want to use their voice, they can act as a voice donor. This is just a little how-to. Again, you'll have links to these. If you're saying, how do I get my voicemails from my phone to use those recordings for voice cloning? There's a little guide. And then there's also an Audacity how-to, like how do I use Audacity to customize these recordings or make them into the appropriate recording file type. There's a how-to link as well. When you're doing any of this recording, whether it be message banking, voice banking, or creating a voice clone, you want to make sure you're in a quiet environment and keep the microphone close. A lot of times, one of these headsets, like I'm wearing today, is a nice feature. It is with a USB port because it has a sound card built into the USB. It gives a really good quality. And then also having the microphone at the level of your mouth always makes those recordings just that much better. If you're recording on any sort of mobile technology, typically the phone mic is going to be better than a tablet. Make sure you're using emotion and intonation. Take breaks. You don't have to do it all in one sitting. And make sure you have water available to you. And then make sure you complete these recordings when you have the energy for it. There are some of the services will offer like a short phrase option. So if what they've recommended is too long, you may be able to choose a shorter phrase option. So I've recorded, created my banked messages, my voice clone, my banked voice. How do I use it? So these are, and Anne-Marie, I know I'm getting running out of time, so I'm going to try and go through these, but please don't hesitate if you have any questions at the end. We can go into more detail if you need. So these are with traditional voice banking. The programs are listed up above. Down the left-hand column, you have some speech generating apps that are listed there, and it'll show you with the traditional voice banking, the voice cloning, and the message banking, which ones are compatible with each of those. This also is an additional reference for which apps are compatible, which text-to-speech apps and softwares are compatible with each of the different traditional voice banking companies. And then this is if you have a speech generating device with a communication software built in. Again, it gives you the programs down on the left column, the Windows-based and iOS-based, and which of the traditional voice banking, voice cloning, or message banking options are available within those softwares. If you want to integrate your voice clone into a Windows-based communication device, for integration with PRC Saltillo and Tobii Dynavox Windows communication devices, feel free to send an email to request appointment with Bridging Voice at 11labs@bridgingvoice.org. SmartBox and Talk to Me technology devices have a built-in integration through Grid 3 now, and there's a link to a YouTube video on how to do that. And then just recently, Mind Express with eyegaze.com, they have integrated 11 Labs within their Mind Express communication software as well. A link to that information will be provided. How do you get help? Here's a link with a QR code to some of these handouts and some handouts from previous presentations that we've had about voice and message banking. So feel free to take a picture of that. Use your QR code scanner. I'll leave it up for a few more seconds. Here is contact information for Bridging Voice. If you need help with voice and message banking and voice cloning, contact your local speech language pathologist, ALS clinic, or other ALS resources to see if they're able to help with voice preservation. A lot of times, I know Anne Marie was sharing with me that Les Turner typically will refer someone to Shirley Ryan Ability Lab or to Team Gleason. Team Gleason has a specific voice preservation team that can help with that. If you do not have local support, you can always request a referral to Bridging Voice and we can get you connected with the appropriate parties. You can email us anytime, info@bridgingvoice.org, and you can find us online at bridgingvoice.org as well. Again, you'll have access to all of these links and resources for each of these programs. And then Team Gleason does national assistance. You can go to their website and there's a link there on their website to request assistance. If you have a speech pathologist or someone supporting you locally, you can request funding only. So that means that they would pay for the purchase of your voice when you needed it. That, personal synthetic voice, that traditional voice banking voice, you could request funding only. So they would pay for the purchase of that. Or if you don't have local support, choose funding and support on that application, and then you'll be contacted by someone from Team Gleason's voice preservation team. Thank you so much for joining us. It has been my pleasure sharing all of this information with you. I want to give a special thank you to Lisa Bardock of ALS Michigan. She was an original creator and collaborator in the creation of this presentation, and my colleague Abigail Marks, who they tag teamed this. And so now I am kind of building on that. We're updating it and sharing this information with you all. Thank you so much for having me.
Lane, thank you. So I was hearing Abby's voice. Lane, thank you so much for all of that information. Do you maybe mind going back to that QR code just in case anybody else might want to scan that?
I don't mind at all.
In the meantime, let me also check any questions that have come in. So there were a couple really, I think, important things to highlight from your talk. One being, the sooner you can get this done, the better. But I also really, really appreciated how you emphasized it's kind of never too late in a sense, right? Like, I know one of my guideposts is always trying to kind of minimize any regret somebody may have. And I think it's important to mention on here too, it's really easy for us to say like, oh yeah, record your voice or record your laugh or record some stories, right? But it's also important to recognize just kind of the emotional weight and lift
100%.
It can be to really kind of get yourself in the place where you're ready to record. So if it doesn't get done right away, or it's that thing on your to-do list that just keeps kind of getting pushed down the list,
Yep.
know that there are still options available for you. So thank you so much for highlighting that.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
let's see. Um, okay, regarding kind of your guidance and
Yeah.
expertise at Bridging Voice, I know you are local to the United States. What if somebody lives internationally? Can they still reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Please do reach out to us. We can make sure that we either provide that support and or get you connected with someone else who can provide the support for you. But yeah, absolutely reach out.
Awesome. And then also kind of going through these, there was a question about the credit card removal with regard to 11 Labs.
Yeah,
So if you remove your credit card um, from the website, um,
correct.
they can't charge you if you hit that limit of those 500,000 characters a month. So then your voice will just stop working. You won't lose access to your voice. It's
Correct.
just, it won't come out.
Yep.
Is that correct?
That is correct. So you have to do the credit card to create the account, but you can request the removal of the credit card. You don't lose access to your account because the account is free. But then if you had used all of the credits, again, you have the rollover. So we have so few people who have run into this issue. Yes, you absolutely never lose access to your account, but you can request that they remove that so you don't have any incidental charges.
Yeah, and I think that was going to be my next question too, of like, it's my understanding, character limit wise, like that's a
Yeah.
really big limit. And that many people don't even,
N-
get
And not don't even come close
close
to
to
that.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. And with that rollover feature, it's nice too because I mean, I think I have 1.5 million characters on my personal account at this time, just because I haven't used most of my characters month by month.
Yeah.
So. Well, you have to think about too, when you are using your 11 Labs voice, um, if you're using it on a communication device, you're typing with your eyes, so that is just naturally a little bit less. You're typing less essentially with your eyes than you are with your hands. But even if we have someone who is bulbar onset and still using like in a
Mhm.
text to speech app or something like that, we have had so few of our clients who have even come close to that 500,000 character limit each month.
Oh, fantastic. That's so great to hear. So, so great.
Yeah.
Um, what about, there was some questions on kind of the standardization, like how to integrate all the different vendors who do voice banking and creating synthesized voices. I know you and I both work really closely with Team Gleason and a lot of the other companies, like I'm sure we both have our folks that we reach out to at Acapella and the Voice Keeper and things like that. Do you know of anything that is being set up to kind of streamline that process, so to speak?
I unfortunately can't speak to that.
Okay,
I don't know of
same.
anything specific with Team Gleason. We do partner with them, and we typically will just refer our
Yeah.
clients to Team Gleason either for support and funding or for just the funding if someone has done their own voice and message banking independently. So I am not aware of any of that. I'm not privy to any of that information, but I'm sure Gleason is working on a way. Their voice preservation team is incredible, and I'm sure they're working on a way to make sure that that's streamlined and easy for people who are wanting to do voice and message banking.
think it also just speaks to, um, you know, yes, a standardization process. Like, I like the idea of being able, I always tell folks, like, I really do recommend doing all three if you
Yeah.
can, two at a minimum, just to kind of cover those bases.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it's also really important to emphasize, and you did a great job of this, of not there isn't like one app or one company to
Right.
go with, right? Like when we
Yep.
think about a term those in the audience might hear often is feature matching, and we kind of refer that to picking the best communication device that's going to fit your needs. There is a lot of feature matching that Lane and other speech pathologists are doing when they're kind of directing you on what process is going to be the best for you. So also think about that too. Like you have options. Couple more questions. Um, let's see. Do You'll be able to, I think in the links that you provided me, so everyone, Lane did a fantastic job providing me with links. We'll put those up on our website along with today's recording. So you have all of those little tips and tricks. To be able to move your messages from like the AVR app to mymessagebanking.com, there are directions for that as well.
Yeah, there should be,
Yeah.
and there should be even the YouTube included in those
Mhm.
links. If not, Anne-Marie, don't hesitate to let me know, and I'll make sure I can pass that on to you so you can share as well.
Awesome. And I'm pretty sure I have, back when I was treating, a cheat sheet, so to speak, for that. It's pretty easy.
It is.
You can do it just straight from your phone.
Yep.
Uh, and then last question I have that came in here, um, is just somebody saying thank you so much, Lane,
Oh,
that
you're welcome.
this
Thank you.
information has been so helpful. Um, if your clinic isn't able to provide one-to-one assistance, does Team Gleason assist? Yes.
Yeah.
So again, Team Gleason has a really great virtual team of voice preservationists who can kind of help you with that a cappella piece. All right, everyone. Um, Thank you so much for your time and attention today and giving Lane and I if you're in the Central Time Zone, your lunch. We really appreciate that. And for August, I am happy to share. Let's
Oh, you
see
probably need me to
here.
stop my sharing, huh?
Perfect. There we go. There she was. Our next ALS learning series is going to be Thursday, August 21st, again at that 12 o'clock Central Time hour. It'll be with Becca Schroeder. She is an occupational therapist at the Lois and Zulia ALS Clinic at the Les Turner ALS Center at Northwestern Medicine. She's going to be talking about activities of daily living. So we look forward to seeing you in August. Again, thank you all so much for your time today, and have a good rest of your day. Lane, thank you so much.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. It was my pleasure.
All right, everybody. Bye.